I'm speaking to a person who has very strong family ethos of never giving up, wants this country, this world a better place, and wants artists and craftsmen to be better off.
The way the industry was structured at that point in time, everybody was simply looking at making things cheaper. But the guy who was getting crushed was the craftsman. What really happened was a guy who was highly skilled was now struggling to make his ends meet.
What some of the most brutal truths about starting up or scaling up in this domain that people generally don't talk about?
I have a great story, which I always tell people. It's like when a guy comes to you and says, give me a glass of milk. He needs a glass of milk.
So for 5-6 years, you were in the red and still marching ahead.
And still growing.
Still growing, okay. It takes some guts.
It wasn't about, we were not in red because we were making losses. It's just that we were in the red because we were constantly reinvesting into the company.
What I really want you to share is the cheat code of building a furniture fit-out business. Like, what are these crystallized ABC?
We never called anybody for work for the first 14 years of our life, ever. It was every single time it was organic. Somebody referring to someone.
You are making it sound too easy.
Yeah.
It is never too easy. Welcome to RDash podcast. It's a place where we have conversation with thought leaders in architecture and construction space. I'm Amit Bansal, co-founder and CEO of RDash. RDash is a new age project management software for factories, contractors, architects, and construction teams. Today, I'm happy to welcome our guest, Mr. Parminder Pal Singh, also known as Bubbles in the industry. He is a product of NIFT Delhi, and he is the man behind multiple luxury brands, including Tama, Madike, Pintark, and Coir. Today, we will take a deep dive in his journey, mistakes he has made, breakthroughs he have found, and definitely some spicy take about the industry. So let's dive in. So hey Bubbles, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Amit.
My first question to you is, how did you get this nickname?
Well, I get asked this particular question many times, especially when people look at me and they can't relate to the word bubbles with me. I think, I was just born a very round baby, and my aunt, who doesn't speak a word of English otherwise, suddenly said that he looks like in Punjabi bubble varga lagda hai. And it just stuck. So and I also feel that it's a matter of convenience for people. They find it easier to say Bubbles than Parminder Pal Singh. So yeah, I think that's probably the main reason.
I also think that you have this jolly, bubbly personality, very welcoming for the people, very down to earth.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think the name's got to do something with the person's personality always.
Yes. So Bubbles, you started the company, I think in 1990s, right?
Yeah.
Right after passing from NIFT.
Yeah, 1997.
1997. So tell me about your early life leading up to you starting a company of your own.
Well, I actually majored in jewelry when I was in accessory design department in NIFT. But I realized that particular field is not for me. When I saw it from the inside, I realized that I probably will not be a fit in that industry. I ventured out and I started looking for things and work, however I could find. And right away, I started freelancing for various clients. Including Ministry of Textiles and a few exporters and people like that. That was really the start point of it, and I was just doing all kinds of things, from photography to mood boards and to dance photography and a lot of exciting things. Loved it all, but there was no set direction. Yes. So I was just trying to find myself, but I was lucky that I could continuously find some interesting work here or there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and how was the market landscape back then? How was this? A lot of people starting companies of this kind, because you are purely into a craftsmanship and design, these kind of work, right? Historically, this line of work is not considered to be a scalable business, right? But you started. What have been your driving force behind? Is there any bigger objective working behind the scenes which propelled you to be rational about it and just go with the flow?
I don't think it's not a scalable business. It's just a lot more difficult than a standard format of a business, because there are more people than the actual product which drive this business. More the people, the more difficult it becomes, because the more opinions, the more thoughts, the more layers, all of that. So when I started, the export industry in India, of course, has been thriving for a long period of time. There have been lots of craft pockets in the country which have done really well, like Moradabad, Firozabad, and Saharanpur, and Udaipur, and Jodhpur, and all these places, in Jaipur. But what I realized was that the way the industry was structured at that point in time, everybody was simply looking at making things cheaper, making things with materials which were, which could be more cost effective, processes which could be more cost effective, but never really going towards the technology side. Is just reducing the value addition to the product, and it didn't make a difference to the person who was buying it in the American or the European or any other market. It didn't make any difference to the person who was selling it from India, because they were basically traders of crafts. They didn't care about whether the product was priced at $100 or $1 or $10. All that mattered to them was what was the top line and how much margin did they make out of it. So higher the volume, the better the turnover, and the better, higher their margin. That was the mainstay of the business. But the guy who was getting crushed was the craftsman. Yes. Because what was basically happening was the people who would be working in brass suddenly started doing things in aluminum, and then when even that didn't work, then they started working in iron and so on and so forth. And what really happened was a guy who was highly skilled was now struggling to make his ends meet. That I think was my first take when I saw the way the industry was working. The other big reason that I felt, which was a big black hole in the industry, was no regard for design. I mean, it was simply interpretation from multiple people down the line, from the owner of the export house to his senior merchant, then to his junior merchant, then to his production manager, and then the senior craftsman and the junior craftsman. So everybody was interpreting the way they wanted to interpret. Yes. Now what happens in a situation like that is there's a design professional sitting at the other end of the world, and what he expects from a product and what he gets out of that product are completely different things. So we found that this is a niche, I think, where we could contribute. So we put two and two together, which is, one, we were very determined that we should be doing something for the craft sector. We should be doing something not because we felt pity for it, but because we felt that there was such a huge caliber in this country, and it was being exploited in all the wrong ways that it could be. But at the same time, we also realized that there was a huge gap in design interpretation, which simply means that to make sure that what the person expects at the other end gets that kind of a product, and that's exactly what he's looking for.
No, definitely. I think kudos to you. It's a job really well done. In fact, we are sitting on the Madike chair. It's all brass. It really has a different feel. The design looks ahead of its time. And especially when back in early 1990s, Indian craftsmanship was underappreciated. There was always growing pressure on the pricing, and that's where the people who are processing the design to get something made, they were still making money by cutting the corners around the material specifications or the techniques. But both the craftsmen and the designer, they were getting shortchanged. In that kind of an environment, somebody standing up and building a huge setup, right? I've seen through your factories, the way the factories are managed, the entire ambience, the way, and the entire deal that I've seen in the worker, it is on a different level. So kudos to you, and it's a commendable job that you have done for the industry.
Thank you.
But having said that, this is still a very difficult industry to survive and thrive in, right? And your journey would not have been very smooth. So if you can shed some light on what are some initial challenges in the part of your journey of building up Loco Design, Coherent, and a couple of other brands, were there any challenges which almost made you quit?
Okay, so I'm not built like that. And I think it comes from a learning and a growing up. My father was a commendable man. I've never seen anybody work as hard. Very, very ahead of his time. Always trying to find solutions to things, and always trying to keep himself busy. Even at this age, I mean, he's now almost 80, and he still keeps himself completely occupied and is constantly thinking and evolving. It was never about the work or the setbacks. I think sometimes it was about people. It was, so I always say it is never the stress of the work that brings me down. It is sometimes the disappointment in people that brings me down. So that probably has been the only setbacks that I look back and say, I wish that hadn't happened.
Okay, so basically, you are someone who has very high standards of family ethos, and you always resort to them when you face a difficult situation.
Absolutely. I mean, I can go right back to my school time, and I was supposed to be a brilliant student in every regard, and I've been very, very lucky. I've been skilled in most ways. I mean, there was not a thing that I set my mind to or that I couldn't do, and I always found things sometimes too easy. So I was constantly trying to find some challenge for myself, and I lost my way, I think, and from being one of the high scoring students in 10th, I actually flunked in 11th. And I was in Chandigarh at that point in time, and my father was, I think, at that point in time in Ahmedabad, and I had to make that difficult phone call to tell him. But when I picked up the phone and gathered my guts to say that this is what's happened, I just heard silence at the other end, and a few seconds later, he just said, son, when a farmer works for 6 months and he looks at his field, he's ecstatic about what he's going to get out of it, because all his hard work is now paying off. And if it rains on that very night and destroys everything, what does he really do? He doesn't sit back and brood about it. He gets up the very next day and he starts tilling his land, because his hope to get a yield 6 months later is still alive, and that's what drives him. Single sentence that completely changed and transformed the way I thought. So it is the sense of fear is completely gone, and the kind of faith that he put in me. I think on that particular day, I felt that I should be doing something with myself. So that's
I totally resonate with this thought process. You can say the encouragement and the support that one gets from their family really goes a long way for them to take big decisions, risky decisions, and really put themselves on a pedestal and come out strong. Yeah. So your life philosophy is you get back down, you start flowing again. Yeah. Okay. So this industry that you're working in, projects, furniture, fit out industry, this industry is dominated heavily by relationships, right? You have to be an insider to get accepted and do a good job. So, right. So you have to be in the right, in front of the right eyes, right? Saying and doing the right things, building the right relationship. So in your early days, did you feel like an outsider? Was that a blocker somewhere? And what did you do to overcome that challenge?
See, Amit, I think everybody feels that. It's not, I wasn't something special. Even the people on the inside of the industry sometimes feel that they haven't got a fair chance. I think we were very lucky to be skilled ourselves, coming from a design background and having a team which is absolutely brilliant. I mean, they were always willing to experiment. I would throw things at them, and they wouldn't understand as to what the repercussion of creating something like that would be. But when it came alive, it actually sometimes even shocked people that this is a possibility. And even till date, when people walk into the factory, there are so many people who travel from different parts of the world and come to see what we create. Even till date, I think there is a sense of awe, and that I think is the single biggest, what I call, definition of success for me personally. I think when I see somebody looking at something and completely in disbelief, that's what drives me the most.
So the daring spirit your father infused into you, you have infused that spirit back into your team, and that's how you are going about
I think it was only natural. It was never the intention. It was never planned. But I think, when you behave like somebody, it rubs off on everybody else, I guess, around you. So yeah.
So let's zoom out a little bit. So if you have to explain what you're doing, what's your body of work, right? There's Loco Design, there's Querent, and then there are a host of other brands, right? So what is this entire universe you are building of different furniture, fixture brands with lots of craftsmanship and artisanship behind it? So what's really you are building, how far you have come about, and what's your goal?
So when we started, like I told you, the intention was to make sure that that every time we work in a particular craft, we should take it to a level which is unexpected out of India. We never thought of competing with people in China or Vietnam or any of these people. We were looking at competing at a global level, and I'm very happy that we took that decision, because I can today easily say that we've built one of the best factories in the world with some of the best craftsmen in the world. The idea was to first create an infrastructure where we can actually create what we think about. So hence Curendi came about. Brother and I started this about in 2000 or 2001 or something like that, and we were very clear on one aspect. Only two things we want to sell is design and quality. Period. If we make it, we make it. If we don't, no regrets. That's what we're going to do. With that, in our mind, we've had ups and downs and some crazy journeys, and some really crazy episodes throughout. But today I can say that in Curendi we've got some of the best clients from the world over, some of the best brands in the US, including from.
Who all are you working with? Yes.
So right up from restoration hardware, our house, now also Pottery Barn, I would say in the mid-high segment, going all the way up to Ralph Lauren, Erin Lauder, Tory Burch, Assoline. There are over 30 odd brands that we work with.
I can say you are making our country proud in many ways.
Thank you very much. That was. We had our blinkers on, and we still have our blinkers on. I don't think we waver with that one aspect of it. That the only direction we want to go is make sure that design, craftsmanship, and quality are the only parameters that we work with. Price should be secondary. We started Loco in 2013. We'd seen a lot of movement. A lot of our friends, architect friends, would call us and say, "Can you do this for us, or can you do that?" We would invariably end up making some leather panels for somebody or some leather furniture for someone. And then suddenly I realized that the frequency was getting higher and higher, and that's when we set up Loco as a company. Our initial thought process was to set up our brands and then promote only the brands, but of course it doesn't always work out the way you plan. But it's taken, in a very short span of time, we became one of the best factories. 5 to 7 years we were competing with the top 3-4 factories in the country for making furniture. Well, Madeke is our premium brand. I would say it's top end luxury. The idea of Madeke is to actually take the Indian craftsmanship to the world. Not only in terms of what we can make, it's also about the design ethos. It's also about the materiality, the mixing of materials, and creating something which is completely unexpected from India. Hugely successful again. We haven't really formally launched it globally, but we are on the verge of doing that. We set up an office in London, and now we're looking at a team in New York, and hopefully by next year, 2026, it should be everywhere.
Okay, so let's say all the portfolio combined.
Yeah,
we have almost 5 and 6 factories which are sort of catering to all these line of brands, right? Yeah. So how much is the total square feet area of shop floor, the production floor that we have?
I I think it's about 3.5 lakh square feet.
3.5 lakh square feet. And I'm trying to gauge it for our viewers that when they are putting up an investment in a factory
Yeah.
to, let's say, cater to the similar segment, maybe mid to high end or ultra luxury segment,
Yeah.
right? There would be per square feet investment in terms of the setup that they will have to make.
Yeah.
How much they can expect in terms of the revenue, per square feet revenue. So that's the broad calculation I'm trying to align. So maybe by putting some idea of your top line and the total square footage of factory production flow that you have, maybe that could be some benchmark.
See, Amit, it's a very difficult question to answer, but I'll tell you where we're going with this, so that it's, there's some perspective to what we can derive out of a system like this. Today, for example, working with most of these people, if you're turning around about maybe $15-18 million, without our own brands being launched globally, we look at least 3x of what we are doing today.
Okay.
As of today, we are running at about a 60% capacity in the factory, because we constantly keep building the infrastructure for the next big thing. So we make sure that there is 10 to 20% extra capacity in the factory always. That's the way we've been building and growing constantly. So from a structure like this, I think I wouldn't be surprised if we can pull off maybe a $50 million business.
Okay, from 3.5 lakh square feet, you're confident of pulling out about a $50 million business annually.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and you also mentioned that you always had that thought clarity that you are going to provide best designs, no corner cutting, right, with the best quality of production. And you made upfront investments in the setup so that you can live up to the quality standards that you have imagined in your head.
Yeah.
So to make that happen, you expose yourself to a significant financial risk.
Yeah.
And there would be definitely scary moments that you would have gone through.
Yeah.
So if you would want to share what have been your biggest oh shit moment in your business.
Well, any businessman who's constantly growing will tell you that it's every day. It doesn't go away. It's how you deal with it, I think, which is important. But yes, when we started Q&D and we got into manufacturing for the first 3-4 years, I think within 4 years we grew from about 20 people to about 400 people. Even after 4 years, we saw that we were constantly in the red, and we're trying to figure out how does the world make money out of a business like this. I mean, between my brother and I, we could never.
For how many years you were in the red in the beginning?
I think probably about 5-6 years.
So for 5-6 years, you were in the red and still marching ahead.
And still growing.
Still growing. Okay. It takes some guts.
I mean, it's a part and parcel of growth. We were not in red because we were making losses. It's just that we were in the red because we were constantly reinvesting into the company. So by the end of the year, we were like, we've got nothing to take back home. What are we going to do? And so kudos our families. I mean, they were brilliant. They supported us brilliantly at that point in time. And it was a whole lot of squabbles and fights and happy moments about, feeling stupid about the whole thing. And yet, it was probably the most enjoyable part of our journey, because those are the days when my brother and I could, just sit back and joke about how silly we've been about the whole thing.
Do you still feel silly about those moments, those decisions?
Not really. I think they were the best part of our time.
You would not change anything about that time?
I don't think I would. I wouldn't. I don't think it is worth it to even think about it. Like, not a remote chance. I mean, the joyful moments of those 4-5 years where we look at each other and you're like, holy shit, what just happened? And you're like, it's all right. We'll wake up tomorrow and we'll deal with it. But there was this one big moment which happened, I think, in 2005. We used to have a factory in Faridabad, near Faridabad in Badarpur, and it was a shed where where the mezzanine looked over the production floor, and there was a huge glass window there, and the store was there, and we could see downstairs as to what is being produced in there. So we had a huge order from a company called Hallmark from the US, and they had ordered 83,000 red heart boxes, and we still joke about that, that when you stood up and you saw 83,000 red heart boxes in front of you, it was like a sea of hearts, and you look at yourself and you're like, what the hell am I doing?
That would have been. I'm sure you would have photos from that day.
I'm not sure we have, and but it was quite a difficult time for us because it was the first very large shipment that we were doing for this company, and I remember 72 hours at a stretch. I was on the quality table. All the people who were finishing and packing the pieces were all there. We would take shifts to sleep for 2 hours each, and then wake up in rotation and continue to do that. The day the quality control had to happen, the controller came from Sri Lanka, and they had very, very stringent rules about how much of rejection, what kind of rejections. But we were really happy that the shipment passed with flying colors. He found very, very small little detailed faults. In fact, we could see that he was struggling to find faults, and he was smiling at himself as to, I'm here just to find faults. But when I left that morning, I think it was the next morning, it was about 3, and I was driving, about 4:30 actually. I was driving back towards Gurgaon where we lived. And I was so sleepy that I actually had to park at the border and just take a nap. And when the sun rose, I just woke up, and we had those big Motorola phones during those days. I picked up the phone and I called my brother, and I'm like, never again. We're getting out of this. This is not what we are meant to do. Okay. But a great call. I think it was probably a life-changing moment for us, because that's when we said that we're going to scale down. But when we were scaling down, we actually stood in front of our workers, and we said, don't worry, give us 3 years, you'll all be back. Okay. And we actually made it happen. And this time it was all the top brands from the world which were walking in. We never called anybody for work for the first 14 years of our life, ever. It was every single time it was organic, somebody referring to someone. And this was just like a God's gift. Ralph Lauren called us, the agency here for Ralph Lauren called us, the agency too for Umbra from Canada.
You are making it sound too easy.
Yeah.
It is never too easy, right? Especially such customized component business,
yeah.
Right? There are 1,000 risks you are exposing yourself in signing up every contract.
Yeah.
Right? A lot of things can go wrong, and most of the time not because of the malintent, just because there's just so many factors to be controlled, right? And you still thrived in that kind of environment. But I'm sure that there has to be some moments or some aspects of doing this that you would have absolutely hated to the core.
Okay. It's, I think, all human traits. I don't think it was about work. It wasn't about challenges, about timelines, about things. I mean, all those things are quantifiable, plannable. One can look at them and say, this is the way we're going to deal with it. But it was all bad commitments from people, from the supply chain, bad material from the supply chain. Sometimes people wouldn't deliver on time. And then the arrogance of the people who were involved in the buying it is.
No, that's where the suffering starts from. It's not just about doing your job right. It's also about picking the right job to start with.
Yeah.
And sometimes you get caught in catering to the customers who you do not necessarily match frequency with, and that's when it really becomes a struggle.
So it was intentional. We chose the hard path. There was no example in front of us. There was nobody who was doing something like this where they said, "Nahi, hame to sirf design banana hai. We only want to do quality work." I mean, everybody was happy selling to Target, Walmart, Hallmark, lakhs and thousands of pieces. They didn't care. They were stuffing containers and shipping out of it. And here are two brothers who say, "Karna hi nahi hai. We are not going to do this." I mean, it was easy picking, easy business. But we just didn't know how to do it.
That's actually a smart move. If I think about it, catering to this Walmart and Target of the world, it's even difficult. You will get a bulk shipment, bulk order. It's easier to land an order, right, with bare minimum investment on the supply side of things, right? But then catering to these customers, living up to the whims and fancies, and getting the final money out, right? That's equally more challenging. So if you are drawing a line on the quality and design, you are also drawing indirectly a line in terms of what kind of customers you will be dealing with, right? That must have been a factor probably why you love your job so much.
Yeah, I mean, we knew what we are made of. It was just that we were not using it in the right way. We were not using it for the right people. We are very, very committed. Our dedication towards our people and our job is absolute. There is no way we would think chalo aaj no problem, we'll take a holiday for next 7 days. None of that. I mean, we do, but
when was the last time you took a holiday?
Oh boy. I took a holiday last year with my family in Europe. I mean, they took a long holiday. I just joined them for 7 days and I came back, I think 10 days. But yeah, I do. It's not that I don't.
So let's put it this way. So it has been 28 years of building the company. Cumulatively, how many days you would have called in sick if you just have to call out a number?
Very difficult. 15 maybe.
15? Not even once a year?
I mean, I've been to the factory when I've been running 103, 104 fever. No problems. Yeah, you're a little slower on those days. You need to relax a little bit, sit back, and the beauty is that people who are dealing with you also understand that. It's they also then say, "Oh, he's not well. Let us take the charge and let's us try and do things."
It's like you don't know what you will do at home. The only place you know what to do is your factory.
Well, it's not that. I am personally probably one of the most relaxed people that most people would know. I mean, I can sit and watch movies endlessly. I can sleep endlessly, and that's the problem is I don't have personal ambitions. I've never been able to drive myself. I want to become that. It's not that. It doesn't work for me somehow. It is always when I look at people and I say, I think we can get together and do something like this. So it was not about me. It was also about the craftsmen who were, who needed that. It was, and I needed it with them. It
seems to me that you want your work to be bigger than you. You want your work to survive long after you are gone.
Well, it has to. I mean, what's the point otherwise? I mean, it's not about that. It's not about this company. It's also about setting standards in the industry. You have to make sure that you set some examples. For example, for the longest time, I used to hear that, you're a designer. Your job is to design. You do that and you get out. I'm like, no, that's not my job. I don't think that's not what I studied for. That's not what I trained myself for. My job is to make sure that I provide enough opportunity to people and set examples for enough number of people that there could be a favorable change in the country.
I can bet you have a patriotic heart. Deeply patriotic, nationalistic human being.
Yeah, well, I mean, our favorite hero is Bhagat Singh, and he's absolutely. It's unbelievable what that man did. Somebody asked me a question I think about 3-4 months ago. Says, there's so much potential for you everywhere else. Why don't you settle anywhere else? I'm like, you'll have to jail me somewhere else to keep me outside this country. There is no way I would leave this country.
Okay, so now that if I have to summarize what I heard, I'm speaking to a person who has very strong family ethos of never giving up, always backs himself up, have larger than life ambition, not about himself, of achieving some comfort or materiality, wants this country, this world, a better place, and wants artists and craftsmen to be better off, and looking for ways to give back and make a meaningful change in society. So if you and the viewer of this conversation are generally the aspiring entrepreneurs or the leaders who are running early scale companies in construction fit out domains, right? And who are generally struggling with challenges of scalability. And this inherently is a highly, highly secretive industry. People generally do not want to share secrets which will really make up the life of a fellow entrepreneur. That really happens. So if you have to look in the camera and tell those guys what some of the most brutal truths about starting up or scaling up in this domain that people generally don't talk about.
I'm pretty sure that everybody would have a similar story to mine when they're setting up a company. I mean, we started with zero money. The one thing that I take away every day is that if one is committed to what one wants to achieve, and defines his success story by what do you mean by your success, and at the end of the day, and one thing that I'm very sure of is that if money is your measure of success, then you're definitely on the wrong path, because we've always looked at money as a byproduct of what you do. It is not about, when I hear youngsters say that, I want to get rich, I'm like, get rich doing what? You need to complete your sentence. You can't just leave it at that. Money comes, aspirations, fame comes, power, everything comes with time. It takes a certain amount of time, and you need to make sure that you've given it enough for you to expect back something. So I think that's
really good, and that's really good for the human side of advice. What I really want you to share is the cheat code of building a furniture fit out business. Like, what are these crystallized ABC of that you should do if you want to start and scale a furniture fit out business?
Make sure you consult the right people who know their job. Make sure that you set your systems first, product later. I think make sure that your goals are clearly defined in terms of where you want to take that business. And but I really think the most important thing would be to ensure that it's not about that I want to get up and start making furniture. It is all about making sure that you understand the systems behind that, whether it is the people, the technology. Spend time on looking at how you can make sure that you spend less time worrying about things that you should not be worrying about.
So would you advocate being choosy about the customers in the beginning?
So there are two ways of looking at it. When we started, it was very difficult to choose. Today, I think we have the luxury of choosing. It's not about that. Would I be in a position to choose if I was the same person 20 years ago? I'm not sure I have the answer for that, but the strong probability is that I may not be able to choose, especially if I was starting with nothing in my pocket. But at the same time, just because you're doing something you did not want to do does not mean you lose your direction. You choose to do that on that particular day, because that too is a means to an end. That is like a stepping stone for you to get where you want to get. Sometimes it is, like I said earlier, sometimes it's only about a transaction. Just finish the transaction and get out of it. Don't need to think about too much about why I did it, how I did it, and all of that. Sometimes you just need it on that particular day. So I wouldn't shy away from taking those decisions on those particular days.
You may not have the luxury to have those big filters around what kind of business you take on in the beginning. You may be doing some transactional stuff to put your act together, but you need to have some right set of business ethos in place that you will stick with even in furnishing those orders from the first day. So this is something that you will not compromise with.
Yeah.
Now, talking about, as you said very passionately about the creative kind, the artisans, the craftsmen, the designers, right? But the reality of the fact is also that sometimes the creative person act a little too creative for business, right? And that creativity has to be kept in check for business to thrive. Have you had those moments?
I mean, every other day. It does happen. It does happen. But I have a great story, which I always tell people. It's like when a guy comes to you and says, give me a glass of milk. He needs a glass of milk. You can only choose the glass that you want to pour that milk in and give it to him. If you're going to sit and mull that maybe I can give him something better, and you want to shake it, or you want to store it, you want to turn it into curd, and then into lassi, and then makhan and ghee, and say, I think I can derive this from it, and I think he'll get better value out of that glass of milk. I mean, what you've basically done is you haven't understood the question in the first place. So listen really hard, and I think it is very important for you to make sure if the need is the glass of milk, provide the glass of milk.
Oh, there's a Sunny Deol dialogue. दूध मांगोगे तो खीर देंगे. दूध मांगोगे तो दूध देना, खीर नहीं देना.
Yeah.
So, and also when you, as you said, this is a very people-intensive business.
Yeah.
You work with loads and loads. How many people did you have right now working with yourself?
I think we have probably about 1,300, 1,400 people in the organization.
Right. So 1,400, and most of them are skilled in some or the other creative work, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think most of the people are come from a skill background. Yeah.
Somebody told me one day that handling highly creative folks is a pain in the ass. Do you also feel the same?
I completely disagree. I think what you need to do is to make sure that when somebody is creative, to make sure that he can actually do what he really intends to do. Just because you want him to do a certain thing and he does not agree with it does not mean that he is crazy. You could too. You could be too, right? So expect what the guy can deliver. So if there are skilled craftsmen that I'm working with, it is my duty to understand as to what best they can deliver. And of course, everybody has their whims and fancies. Everybody has their way of doing things. You can't just tell somebody on day one that this is not right and this is the way it should be done. Take your time, let him show you something, and then maybe you'll also get your opportunity to show that maybe this is a better way. Dialogue, communication. I think whether it is verbal or whether it is the actual act of creating something, I think it is important.
The way you are acting yourself is also a passive communication to your people around. But dealing with so much of creative kind, do you have some tactics or rituals baked inside the company culture to keep these people aligned to the common goal?
See, first thing, I think the most important thing that I feel is that you need to give them dignity. That is the most important thing. Give them the right environment to work in. Listen to them. It is important that you listen because there are sometimes very simple things make a big difference in the way they do things or the way they make things. I think if you're aligned to make sure that you're going to give them back the pride of making things, they automatically align with you. There is no, there's no reason why they wouldn't.
In your opinion, the pride, the dignity is the cheat code of working and managing the creative folks.
Absolutely. I think those are the most important things. Beyond that, of course, there has
to be hygiene levels, right, that everyone will provide. Okay, now let's come to slightly more hairy part of this business, which is delivering on the product or the project that we have signed up on? What is the craziest, shittiest mistake that you have seen towards delivering a project?
Client side, I think the
because it cannot be in silo. It has to originate somewhere.
Yeah. So, I mean, of course, it happens in pockets, and it happens in pockets at multiple different levels. Sometimes it's the expectation of the person who's designed it. You just look at the drawing and you're like, what is he thinking? But I think the single biggest mistake that I saw in one of the projects, which was one of our first projects that we were actually doing in India, and it was a very high-end brand from Europe. It was their show flat, and the consultant was also from outside of India, and we were both standing in front of a wall and trying to figure out how we're going to manage this, because in a single wall of about 14 feet, there was a 3.5-inch skew diagonally. This is one of the top builders in the country. And then the expectation that there should be zero tolerance in the panels or the details that we're going to do on this. Such a huge difference between the expectation and the platform that you've been given.
Okay. Did you try to explain it to the customer? Or you said
the consultant and I, we just stood there and laughed at me like, we have to deal with this, because I don't think they'll even get what we're trying to say. Because again, I'm talking about 12, 15 years ago. Not many people would be paneling the walls the way we were doing in that particular project. So yeah, so that I think was the strangest thing that happened.
How did you deal with that?
Well, we had to literally box that wall and create
a different facade for you, and on that
literally
facade,
another surface in front of it.
Okay.
Yeah, but it seems like a small thing, but when you're actually dealing with
Did you build that change?
Well, it was our first big project like that, and so we realized the simple act of making sure to measure every inch of the project that you're going to deliver, how important it is, especially at that scale, and especially when it's so stringent to be so perfect in your delivery. But yeah, I mean, we make stupid mistakes all the time. It's a part and parcel, because again, there's so many people in the chain that something or the other invariably high chances of it going wrong. But over the years, I think we've realized that it's also the way the industry is structured, the way the industry practices it. Nobody has really encouraged people to be more specific about what they're going to do.
Especially the customer. They do not want to be specific, at least at the stage of signing up the contract.
Yeah, well, those decisions go on till the key is turned. There's constant change, and things like Pinterest and all don't help. Every
Pinterest
morning
has made this world even more crazier for fit-out industry, at least.
Absolutely, it is so amazing that sometimes you get up and you say, okay, we have to deal with this lobby which is 8 feet by 8 feet, and you get a picture of a hotel lobby which is 3 stories high, and you're like, can we do something like that? And you're like, well,
sure, ma'am. Why not?
Yeah,
we'll figure something out.
Yeah, but you also know that one can't really blame them. It is a visual world. You see a picture, you like it. For them, it is not about visualization. They like something, they want to throw it out there. It just starts happening too often, because it is so available to everyone that it gets very difficult to maneuver projects anymore.
So I'm I'm enjoying this conversation and being more and more curious about the sector in general. I want to understand every business, every segment of work has their own trade secrets. I'm coming from a similar industry background, so I can probably share a little bit from my side. But yes, if I have to ask you, what are some of the secrets, or what is the top secret from this furniture fit out industry that only the insiders know?
It's not such a glamorous world as it seems like. 99% sweat, 1% aesthetics. I mean, that's the reality of this business. Really, it happens in every trade. I mean, I've seen my friends from the cinema world struggle, for 3 years to put a 3-hour picture together. So I know what it means like even in their world.
It happens so often that customer with thick pockets acting stupid.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't use a strong word like that, but yes.
So acting aloof to your problems.
Yeah.
Let's call it that. Okay.
Yeah.
You still have to handle, right? And almost every company, every day, in every transaction goes through these situations.
Yeah.
There are protocols about things to be said and things not to be said.
Yeah.
That you keep teaching your team on how to handle situation like that. Maybe you can shed light on those areas.
See, the one thing which I feel is really unfortunate about this industry is the payment structures. I find it extremely mind-boggling as to how does stopping somebody's payment make you work harder or make you work better.
Yes.
Or make you want to design or create something better for someone. I mean, it's the same thing as a hungry craftsman trying to do something, or somebody who has a full belly trying to create something. If you're not going to give somebody that much of respect and make sure that that the person is taken care of, then obviously you're never going to get the best out of that person. And I've had some brilliant clients. I mean, most of them have been absolutely brilliant. But I've had clients who've come and paid upfront and said, please, I just expect the best of what you can do, and please help me deliver this. And those projects have gone the most smoothly. Those projects have been some of the most beautiful projects and most gratifying. Those people are still friends and great friends at that.
Yeah, and to make matter even worse, the reality of the fact is there's no real payment protection for the suppliers in the furniture fit out industry in India.
Unfortunately, in our country, it is relevant everywhere. There are no set mechanisms built in. Although
in companies like US and some of the Western market, you deliver a job. The customer is not happy with the job. He's holding your payments off. You go to the court. A lien on the property gets enforced. The person cannot occupy the property till the time he has settled. The dispute is settled. But here, people will stop your payment. They will start using your products and the facility that you have built for them, and they will keep on calling out snacks, and they will drag it for months and months, right? And you are chasing behind like a beggar, and that's where the grind gets real for the founders in this industry, and that's really sad.
I can feel your pain.
Yeah, so
I can see where you're coming from, but it is also I think we've realized that we should be a little more stringent about how we want to work. Internationally, zero problems. I mean, we don't even have to make a phone call. We don't even have to write an email. It is an automated process. Everything comes through at the time when it needs to come through. And yes, I think that's probably one of the lacunas in this industry that needs to be resolved pretty. But I don't know how or who is the right person for it. There is, whether...
I recently went on LinkedIn, tagged a couple of the government body personals about the same problem. I was sure that nothing would come out of it, but I think that if some of us keep doing it and then it gets compounded to some sort of a momentum someday, and something can be solved about it. In fact, a large part of thought process in the way we have designed architecture in RDash, like how one party transacts with another party, how the reconciliation settled. So there's a reconciliation settlement at the one customer level, and there's a reconciliation settlement across the node. Yeah. So there's a good amount of thought process baked in that someday we will be able to create some kind of payment guarantees in the chain, wherein both customer and the supplier working on that.
Or at least an agreement.
Yes. No, the serious one. If the network on which industry is operating, right, doing their own work and coordinating with the suppliers, and if this network has really, the protocol has really become de facto, then eating away somebody's payout creates the risk of getting kicked out of the network, can become a significant factor maybe in future. So that has been a thought that is baked in behind, and it's also one of the things that I seriously feel very bad about.
So let me go back to when you said secret. The one thing we made sure is that we don't put all our eggs in one basket. It's not wise. You're also in the these are some truths that we've learned when we came into the industry. It's not something that one sets out right in the beginning. Kal ko, I am going to do this and I'm going to do that, and by the end of it, if I'm not going to get paid, that thought never comes in. That should never be the thought, right? It's a risk that you're taking, but that risk should not be.
You have this quality mindset, design mindset, and then you're thinking about payments, right? These are orthogonal directions.
Exactly. So, for us, I think it was to make sure that we are not relying or dependent on one particular flow of business, that we create enough independence from, in several segments, and to make sure that we can't be held at ransom. It gives us certain amount of confidence to be able to say things to people or to some of our clients. But having said that, I'm basically not that cynical about things. So it doesn't. It bothers us, and it bothers us on a daily basis. But it's not a deal breaker. It should not be a discouraging factor to anybody who's trying to set up something. It should just be a caution that this should be a built-in mechanism in your way of functioning to make sure that when you're growing in the initial years, you build it into your mechanism, and so that that does not become a deterrent to your growth. Yeah.
All right. So let's lighten the mood a little bit. So you are the man who is at the forefront of restoring Indian pride in creating fine quality products, right? Right.
It sounds very nice when you put it like that. Thank you.
This is the truth. I've been in your factory. The kind of components, the way they were arranged, I've never seen these kind of components. In my business, I keep on visiting factories, right? So definitely you are doing a tremendous distinctive job. But my question is, who bubbles from Loco Design admire secretly in the industry?
I have two examples, but both of them are international. There was a brilliant man I met about 15 years ago called Mr. Vignatelli. He ran a company called Clubhouse Italia. Amazing visionary. He's much, much older. He unfortunately passed away about 3 years ago. What he taught me in 12 days of our interaction over 2 to 3 years, I don't think I would have understood it or learned it from anybody in the industry. He was completely open about everything. Being the front runner in the industry. He came to India. He's the one who pioneered the licensing business. He was the guy who got the license for Fendi, and so many other brands like Bentley and people like that, and big brands like that, and made them a household name in the home segment. When I went to meet him in Forli, where his office and factory was, he personally drove me around and showed me every single corner of his factory. And then at the end of the day, he turns around and he tells me, he says, I don't know why am I doing this, but you're the first person to ever visit every corner of this factory. And what he showed me, that the secrets within his factory as to how things happen, it was a learning experience which I could have never imagined. From what he's contributed to the industry, absolutely brilliant and most amazingly. I mean, that's what is admirable about him.
Okay. Would you be open if an aspiring entrepreneur wants to come to your factory and learn from you?
It is a very relevant question. He was open to me for multiple different reasons. Firstly, fag end of his life. Kids not interested in running that business.
And the way you have come out to him, that would be the biggest factor, I think.
Probably. I think it was, he saw that there was a drive somewhere that
There's a larger than life force working behind this man.
And I was very upfront with him. I told him very clearly that there are 100,000 things that I don't know about this industry. So I think he just took that to heart and he took it upon himself, and it was beautiful. I would be like his house guest for 3 days when I went to Fordley, and sit and have lunch and dinner with his family, and it was absolutely brilliant. So would I do the same? I really think if there was somebody who had that kind of a thought process, who wanted to learn about or wanted to do which was bigger than that person, I would be the first person to help that person. But at the same time, of course, I need to protect myself, and I need to protect my family, and I need to protect my craftsmen and the structure that we've built up. So if that person was a straight out competition, I don't know how open I could be.
No, but that's an honest answer. Yeah. I would have been afraid if you had said otherwise.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, my question was had a different, slightly different tangent to it as well. Yeah. People that you secretly admire. So this guy has a definitive positive impact to your life, yeah. Right? So definitely you'd give it to him. Because this guy has contributed to your success. There would be, because this is a very niche industry, people don't know the names, right? Yeah. If you have to drop in a few for people in India who are keeping the flag of quality, craftsmanship high in their respective niche areas that they're operating on.
I think there's one designer, I think Sabyasachi is one of the few people who have, when I read about him and what he's done, I think it's absolutely admirable. I think it's one of the few people that I would think that he came from nowhere and suddenly stormed the industry. Brilliant. There is, of course, somebody like an Amir Khan, for example. Awards is not the driving factor. It is the body of work which is important. What drives him is the story, and not who is telling the story. There are those kind of people who are constantly deliver something absolutely fantastic. So, there are so many people I could think of.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fair. Now that you have spent 28 years,
almost 28. September
yes,
would be 28.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what are some of the bold prediction about the future of furniture that you can make today? What is about this industry that's happening absolutely crystal clear in front of your eyes, but people are aloof to it?
There is a huge mid segment which is coming up in this country. Unfortunately, most of the industry is chasing after that high end brand because there is a glamour quotient attached to it. There is something which makes them feel accepted in this world. I guess this that they are rubbing shoulders with the who's who. I don't know whether it is that or whether it is simply just lack of vision sometimes, or whether it is just refusal to do something which is for the common man. It is. So I don't know what it is. We've clearly defined for ourselves that we are going to deal with the high-end market because there is a market that we can tap globally with.
That's a market has been your home turf as well.
Absolutely. But with Tama, for example, our focus is to make sure that a 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom, 4-bedroom apartment in a 2-tier, 3-tier city, or even in tier 1 cities like Delhi, where people would put in all their life's earnings into a house and then want to make it look beautiful, but have run out of money simply because they bought the house and then they don't know, and then they are building it over the years. I think Tama is for those is for that clientele. But at the same time, if you see the product, it is happy, joyful. It is about adding that one wow factor when you walk into your house and you see something which is which you truly love for what it is. Yeah.
Just saying that there's a big underserved mid segment that is to be catered. Is there any tailwinds or some macro themes about the materials, the machining, or the processing that will go into building this furniture for this segment?
See, the truth of the matter is that the population is growing fast, the market segment is growing fast, but the crafts sector is not growing as fast. It is, in fact, the number of people coming into the craft field are diminishing. We constantly try and make sure that we are training newer and newer people, to be able to work in our setups. What is important is that, at the end of the day, you need to have a fine balance between mechanization and craft, because you can only value add that much through a machine which feels warm. You need to have that some kind of a touch. So I think that is important, but at the same time, the scalability of that business and the potential of that business is so much bigger than what most of us are looking at today. If you are not prepared completely with the infrastructure, then I don't think one could cater to that.
What is one product line that you can back in this middle segment and you just can't go wrong about it?
I mean, people need everything in their house, but I think I wouldn't call it a product, but I would call it a price point. I think it is more to do with the price point. So everybody needs a few beds and and sofas and side tables and everything in everybody's homes. What I think is also important is multi-utility within a product, which I think will be important. You look at places like Tokyo and Hong Kong, even Shanghai today, or New York, for example. The apartment sizes are so small that you need to make your spaces multifunctional. You can see that happening in Delhi already. I mean,
so the multi-utility furniture could be the one big bet.
Yeah, I think throw in a little bit of tech into it, and I think you probably have a winner. Yeah,
that makes a lot of sense. Is China becoming a threat in this segment?
Well, China would always be a threat because it is. I mean, they've got such a huge infrastructure, and what is happening in the world right now is not helping them in a big way. I mean, India has such a huge potential. Growing at 6.5-7%. I mean, in 10 years we'll be twice, thrice the size of the economy that we have today. Just imagine, the kind of money that would flow in this country and the desires and aspirations that would go higher and higher. Who other than a country like China as of today is equipped to deliver? And I think that is where the opportunity is. And before it's too late for our industry in India, I think it is time for us to gear up and make sure that it doesn't happen. Yeah.
So it's basically a call to action for entrepreneurs building in the furniture fit out for the mid segment to really step up and up their game.
Exactly. And I think at the end of the day, it is, look at IKEA. I mean, they're trying to build that business in India, and they came in about 10 years ago, and today they're more bullish about this country than ever before. Of course, most companies that come into India misread this country hugely because we are a completely different set of people. We don't follow the global norms of how to understand a country. We are so many of us, and so many different ways of thinking that it is difficult for a single company to be able to cater across the country. So very generic products, yes, but I think it is important to be able to design really well and make sure that there is, one can actually make a distinct difference in terms of what you have special to deliver to people. And lots of young people I see who are doing it, but scalability again, they're thinking very niche. They're still, if you tell them to choose between a 3-bedroom house in sector 110 in Gurgaon versus Prithviraj Road, they'll go dashing towards Prithviraj Road. They will lose all focus of their structure, and they want to do that. So it is so it's,
I think, but the rationality will flow in from all sides. And I'm also very, very hopeful about India will step up to cater its home demand.
Surely.
So when this rapid shift is happening, what are some of the outdated business model in the furniture fit out space which are waiting to get bust?
I mean, things are evolving very, very rapidly. I mean, look at Delhi, for example. There was Jail Road, then there was Pachkuya Road, then there was Kirti Nagar, now it's MG Road, and now it's slowly shifting. One is the center of attention. So every time a population shifts towards a certain area, I think that is one thing. So one just sitting in one corner of the world trying to cater to everybody isn't working anymore. Second, I also feel that just trying to be like an Italian brand or a German brand, I think it's become a little passé.
Yeah.
I think it's high time people realize that just having a copycat mentalities should not be their mainstay of their business.
That's really true. Indian manufacturers need to get out of this copycat mentality. There's too much of copying the foreign design, the Pinterest models, and then labeling their own. And then
whenever there's a client that talks to us about they're going to Italy to buy furniture, they don't specify those 4 names that they're going to. They specify a country. They specify a country because they know that they're gonna find all their answers in one place and multiple choices for the same question, and they can make a choice. That choice comes through the differentiation that each company makes, through their design, through their price points, through the materials, the treatment of materials, and all of that. Here, I think we are still stuck in that world where everybody seems to be looking alike. We're not trying to find our own individuality and trying to create things where people come to India and say, I'm going to India because I will find all the answers, and I can find, if there are 10 members in my family, everybody will find something for themselves. So I think it is time for us to realize that it's more about creating individuality than just making something just because it sells somewhere else.
So I had this question written that what is one thing that you think that your competitors are doing which will put them out of the business in the next 10 years? I think that's the last answer also kind of answer this question as well, in part.
Yeah, I would think so. I would think that we don't normally look at what the competition is doing and this, that, and the other. But I know that the general feel of the industry is that if you put 10 companies together, you can't tell who's making what. There is no differentiation or distinction. So I think it is important for people to find their individuality.
Yes. So let's say if someone is running a 10 crore furniture company, what is the one killer move that they can make to spring up to 100 crore in maybe, let's say, next 5 years?
I have a belief system. And so there are 3 things that you need to make sure that you need to do or look at. One is time, there's will, and there is patience. Will and patience are not quantifiable. Time is. I think if you can find the right balance between making sure that how can you expand your time. By that I mean to find the right people, to find professionals who are equal or even better than you at delivering something or doing something. It helps you expand your time because they are freeing up your time, but at the same time they're actually multiplying the utilization of that time just because there are so many different professionals, who are focused towards delivering the same goal. If somebody has the ability to visualize and systemize things and then standardize into a format and then make sure that there are a set of people who can deliver towards that, I think there is nothing better than that. And till you are at a 5-10 crore, you can do all that you want. Wake up and work from your like a cook to a mali to a delivery boy to everything. But at the end of the day, I think once you've grown beyond once you want to grow beyond a certain point, then I think systems and operations and how you're going to make sure that everything is organized in a certain way, and of course trusting and handing it to the right professionals, and then just hoping for them to and of course guiding also at the same time.
So what I understood from this answer is you're saying one is you need to be a sucker for good talent. Yes. Always keep looking around people who complement you and bring the right skill, right attitude.
Or even better than you.
Even better than you. And partner with them.
Yeah.
Always create a place for them to contribute in your environment. Right. Second is to professionalize the company. In fact, that's also very interestingly in the last conversation that I had with Mr. Rajiv from L&T. So he had the similar answer. So he did not mention the people part, but he did say that if you want to scale, you need to be, once you are at a certain scale, you need to be thinking how you professionalize your company, what kind of predictable set of systems and processes that you will build right now that will help you pass on those barriers as you scale, right? So if you have to, but irony of the fact is people in this sector are generally averse to technology adoption in general, right? They thrive in chaos. They feel that the creativity will flourish if I don't bring in a lot of baggage of processes and system, right? But you are someone who is actively investing in technology, trying to make things more professionalized, more systematic. So if you have to convince someone in 60 seconds to make efforts towards professionalizing your company right now, what would that pitch be?
I think the most important aspect is that, when I was starting up, there were very limited examples of what one could follow, especially in India. The technology was limited. I mean, you had to go to a library to find something, something to read. Today, knowledge is not the key. It's the application. So today, one has the liberty to actually borrow knowledge from multiple different platforms, and then to make sure how one applies that. And one has to be true to oneself. That you're not glamorizing it in your mind. I think it is very important to be true to yourself first, and say that this is a set of knowledge that I have on my plate, and this is my capability, and this is the part that I can deliver. For everything else, I need to find people, and for everything else, I need to set up systems. Today, it is available to you. So before you set out, I think it is important that all those factors are built into your flowchart right on day one, because it is possible to do it today. It wasn't long time ago, but now I think it is available. So that I think which would be my number one.
Yeah, actually, the people would say that if Bubbles from Loco Design can scale without systems, so would I. But they don't understand that you didn't have a choice back then.
Exactly. Yeah.
Now that they have a choice.
No, I wouldn't. People haven't seen what we do inside the company. It is not about systems necessarily, about softwares and technology and this, that, and the other. Systems come in multiple different ways. There was I think it was Toyota or Mitsubishi who set up the lean management system.
Yes, Toyota.
I read about it, I think in 2002 or 2003, and we immediately implemented it in the factory. That system, in our own way, is still the most important part of our factory, where every single person who comes in contact with any material is responsible for the quality of that material. Anybody and everybody on the floor has the right to reject or accept a material that he has to work with. But he has to justify it to the previous person as to why he can't work with that. Which means that you've set out now a chain reaction where everybody is making sure that the next guy gets the right product to work with. It's not such a difficult thing to do. It is also a system that we applied to, in 2003-4, and it works very well. So it's not that we did not have our own systems. It's just that we could not afford to have peripheral systems or support systems, like the right softwares, the right people, the right professionals, all of those things, which actually make you grow. We did not have those. We couldn't afford those. Today, those things are readily available. What you build inside your company is your culture, is your ethos.
In fact, there are two things really. One is systems, largely the set of processes, protocols that you set out, a manner of doing things to an extent. And then there are rituals. Rituals could be some set of practices, celebrations that you do to really set the tone, right? So are there some rituals that you have laid out in your factories wherein which you feel are foundational to your culture, your company culture?
I think it is important for one to make sure that when there is a win, it is everybody's win. So everybody should know that they have contributed. And it is important for everyone to feel that it is because of them that something has been delivered in a shape which is better than what was expected. Even the guy who's cleaning the floor in the factory is contributing towards to make sure that there is not dust which can then fall onto a product and hence cannot be rejected. So everybody has a certain amount of, a role to play. They're all doing their job. One needs to make sure that you don't disregard their contribution. And I think that's always been the case. We make sure that when we've reached a milestone, it is it reverberates through the company.
So you celebrate small wins and you celebrate with everyone.
Exactly, and celebration does not necessarily mean that you have to it's
get everybody drunk.
Yeah, it is more about making sure that everybody knows that we've achieved this. That is very, very important. I think I have been extremely lucky to have some of the most dedicated people, some of the most loving people in my life, and I'm highly appreciative of that fact. And we have people in the factory who've worked with us for 15-20 years, and we've got some people working in the studio who've been with us right from the beginning. And of course there are some people you get heartbreaks every now and then that shakes up your trust but not your faith. It is important for us to know to make sure that we deliver our message to people that our faith is intact because of what everybody does. We are only as good as what they do, and it's not because of me or what I believe in is what is making the company run. So
we are introducing this section called hot takes. I will make a controversial statement, which our marketing team has sort of some of the statements that they have collected and put together. That we hear all the time from the industry. You have to take a stand, yes or no. And in 30 seconds, you have to explain yourself why. Okay? So, going to be a little bit of a rapid fire. So, the first statement that comes your way is, projects never complete on time. Anyone who says otherwise is lying.
I think they're absolutely right. What is delivered on time could have been done earlier. But
that's a great answer. Yes. Okay, next one. Who is harder to deal with? Clients who constantly change their mind or vendors who constantly miss deadlines?
I think it should be the clients.
It should be the clients because they are the originator of the opportunity.
I think because regardless of, the supplier missing deadlines is a controllable issue and quantifiable. Somebody not being able to make up their mind is a deal breaker because you don't know what's going to happen next. So that supplier may or may not be relevant if the decision is made otherwise. Yeah.
Next one's a little more controversial for you. Luxury projects are just normal projects with better marketing.
I wouldn't think so. I think one can say 10% of it is like that. 90% of it is where I really think there are a lot of professionals putting in a lot of effort towards creating things beautiful. I am of the opinion that if there is no luxury, there is no distribution of wealth. Because that is the only way the guy who has the means is going to loosen the strings of his purse to make sure that it filters down. And that's the only way where a craftsman who really deserves better than the next guy would get paid better.
And that's also a fact that quality has this diminishing return curve, wherein once there's a certain quality threshold that you've reached, incremental improvement in the quality beyond that point has a much higher cost to it.
Absolutely.
Next one coming your way is functionality always wins over aesthetics in real world.
No. I think what is happening in the world, in certain parts of the world today, I think there are some really bizarre things coming out which have no relevance in terms of functionality. I personally feel functional design should always be the most important thing.
Okay. Next one is people resist technology not because it's bad, but because they are too comfortable with chaos.
I would imagine so. I think you're absolutely right on that. Resistance to change is such a huge factor in everybody's mind, right from top to the bottom of any infrastructure, that just because they've gotten comfortable with the process, and there is going to be a certain amount of change, it makes them resist it without even thinking of what the consequence of something like that would be a few days, months later.
Next one is finding skilled workers is harder than finding clients.
I think if you have great craftsmen, if you have great product, clients will come.
And you can, if you have one good craftsman, he can teach it down the line. You can't do the same thing for the customer, at least in a controlled manner.
I mean, yeah. It's a strange question.
So next one is good. Growth in this industry comes from relationships, not processes.
No, I think it comes more from processes. Relationships are secondary to the product that you deliver. So if your process is correct, your product will be great. Relationships can be built.
Okay. If a project manager isn't yelling, nothing is getting done.
Oh, damn, that's the worst thing that anybody can do. I constantly tell people that if you can finish your work between 9 to 5, I'd be the happiest person. And if you can do your work silently, everybody will notice at some point in time. And I personally would notice immediately.
Okay.
Yeah.
The last one is vendors don't make money on the first order. They make money by fixing the client's mistake on the second one.
No, I would never like to repeat something. I mean, once done, I would like to get out of that project as early as possible because there's always something new to do. There's always something more exciting to do.
True torchkeeper of luxury segment. Bubbles. I thoroughly enjoyed our conversation. I think you were absolutely fantastic. Your ethos are shining through conversation, and it was an absolute pleasure to have you on this podcast. I'm pretty sure the viewers of this podcast will have a lot of things to gain from this interaction.
Thank you so very much. Thank you.